Here's everything I learned about prompt engineering after selling more than 100 text and voice setters to businesses around the world. And here's what no one actually teaches you. First, let me skip the basic stuff. Obviously, all of the prompts needs to be in the markdown format. I guess you know that. You need to tell it exactly, for example, when to use emojis or when not to use emojis. So you need to be specific enough. You don't need to use the M dashes to not show that this is an AI, because AI tend to write with the M dashes if you are deploying the text setter. For the voice, never spell URLs out loud if you have it on your knowledge base, or never spell acronyms like LOL or GHL, just say go high level. Look, so you probably know all of these things, so let's skip that. First tactic is you need to treat your setter as a child. And this is actually something that, I don't know, like I naturally started to use it when deploying bigger and bigger setters for more complex use cases. Because we're dealing with sales and appointments, with money, with objections. We need to make sure it does exactly what we need. And so the way we explain the things to a child in a very simple, straightforward way would apply to the setter. So you can rephrase multiple things in different ways to restate, like, what are you trying, like, what are you looking for, okay? So very simple language so that even 12-year-old can understand, and multiple times restating the same thing. If this is text setter, because on the text setter you can have a bigger prompt and this is not going to influence the cost for each execution as much as it does with the voice, which is the pay per minute pricing. So here, this is probably like the biggest tactic that I have been using. Now, and it kind of correlates with me not being a native English speaker, because if you guys been watching any number of my YouTube videos, you will see that I speak in a simple way. I don't use fancy adjectives or like certain words that, you know, a like native English speaker would want to use, or people in the professional environment that know how to, you know, speak in a professional manner would use. And I noticed that it helps a lot. Now, see, even the way I am saying things in this video, I talk a lot about the same things over and over, and I know that some of you hate this. I've posted more than 250 videos on my main YouTube channel, and I got like quite a few comments of people saying, bro, like, it's very hard to listen to you, not because of the accent, but because of you, how you say things. You're jumping from topic to another topic, and you're like saying the same things over and over. So like these things do not help me when it comes to the YouTube and the public picture of my business, but they do help me when I'm talking with the LLMs, because I tend to write all of the prompts for most of our clients, you know, myself. We have obviously the LLMs that are trained to create the prompts the way I do, and I'll show it to you later. But this is more of an advantage that I found. Now, the second tactic is you need to stop writing in one big prompt and have a sequence of mini prompts that actually responsible for the different things: identity, like personality, discovery, objection, booking, fallback. So let me give you an example. If I go to one of my setters, this setter has almost 100,000 characters. It's like, it's a pretty big prompt, okay? So obviously I never would write it myself, nor I would ask AI to completely redesign the prompt if I want to change like a few things. So this is why within our own interface, and the reason why I'm showing it to you, because I want you to apply the same tactics when you are creating your prompts. You can do it with a Claude Code, you can do it with the ChatGPT, or even with like any sort of the project environment that you are using to create the prompts for your setters. You need to split it into the mini prompt. So for example, we have a consistent character, parameter. So this explains how to use, like how to reference a character, which is the actual setter. If we scroll down, we have like social proof, like how to use the social proof. And each of these mini prompts is a value-based prompt by itself. So even if you just give this prompt to the LLM, you don't need to have more context from other mini prompts. It is self-sufficient, okay? So this helps so much for how the setter thinks about processing the user reply. So obviously, all of these mini prompts are organized in the Markdown format, so they are separated by the dashed line separator, and then we're using a header to, title this parameter, this subsection, and then we have how, like, the mini prompt itself. So I would want to highly suggest you to start using the same tactic. The third tactic is tell it, meaning the setter, why certain things happen, and not just tell them what to do. So the example here is, let's say you have the best human sales rep in the world, okay? So it can handle all of the objections, it can ask the right questions, it can build up the connection, it can do everything. But if he doesn't know why your product wins, if he doesn't have the why, he won't do shit, okay? So this is why it goes back to a childlike interaction where you not just say, hey, I want you to book appointments, and if the person is asking why this is so expensive, should be your reply. You need to explain why our product is more expensive than the competitor's one. You need to explain, not just, after you're done with the qualification and with triage, please book an appointment, or start going in and start transitioning to the booking process. You better explain that our goal is to qualify the prospects, and then when the prospect is qualified, we understand that he is a fit, we know that we can help. This is why, in order for us to help, we need to book an appointment. So genuinely, naturally, you need to transition to the booking, because this is the next step of us helping this prospect. Do you see the difference between you just listing the instructions and the current day LLMs are smart enough for you to give it to them, and then they come up with the best tactics on their own following your guidelines. Now, the tactic number 4 is flipping the thesis for the booking. So soft for personality, sharp for function. Now, when it comes to the booking functions, it read like a rocket science paper. Now, if I go to one of my booking prompts that should be right here, booking function, view the prompt. If you read it, if you pause it, you will see that here we're not talking with a child. We're not giving any reasons of like why certain things happen. We say, if email exists, in contact details, does this. If email doesn't exist, do this. Wait for it. So it's like we are giving a very strict instructions, okay? But when it comes to the booking, what you do need to do, you need to explain the identity and contacts for how it is run. And this is where you match the personality with the rocket science paper. And this not only applies to necessarily the text setters, but also the voice. So if I go to my retail account, if I find one of our voice setters that are currently running, let's say, an appointment booking function, you will see that it has the same exact thing. So if I search for booking here, so we have who you are, critical rules, never raw data. So we are explaining the things, and then we give access to the tool. So we do have like some sort of the personality add-on on top of all the technical aspects. Look, guys, by the way, all of these prompts are available for free. You can check out the link in the description and you can just get all of the templates and just play around with it, with all the prompts yourself. Now, as I already said, you open with thesis when it comes to the booking function, then you list all the functions like steps, and then you define the presentation format of how this needs to be presented to a lead. The tactic number 5 is make it stage aware. So the setter must understand where it is sitting in a stage. So without stage awareness, the setter pitches the calendar on message 1. With it, every reply starts by classifying where it is in the flow and then understanding the context. So obviously it is better when you have a unified memory between both text setter and voice setter, but you also would want it to have a pipeline stage awareness. So for example, this is why the way I built my setters, we have, let's say, a different setters for different pipeline stages. So we have like a waitlist engagement, we have call booked engagement, we have a website setter testing. We also have a few more when it comes to where the person books an appointment from, because this is also kind of like a different stage of our pipeline. This is very important. The tactic number 6 is the backbone. 5 things every setter prompt needs: the name, ideal customer profile, lead source, prior communication, and knowledge base inline. This is a must because, yeah, sure. Does the setter need to know who is your ideal customer profile? Meaning, what is the personality of the lead that the setter interacting with? No. Does the setter usually needs to know where the lead comes from? I mean, no. Prior communication. What was the prior communication? What does the lead already know? Maybe if you are running a speed to lead, so for example, if your setter engages with all the leads that submit an instant form on the Facebook, does the setter need to know what was promised on the ad? Probably not, but it will help a ton. Okay, these nuances make a huge difference. So please include all of these things into your prompt to give it more context. And yes, if you're doing it in voice, obviously each section adds the characters and you're going to be pay more per minute. So please don't remove it. Just make each section shorter. The last thing that I want to mention, which is not that obvious, is that if you can put information about the company in a prompt and not RAG knowledge base. As you know, like RAG is a technology where you can upload as many info points about the company, about the services and the products as you can, and then the AI setter is going to retrieve the information from it. So for example, we are built on top of the N8N, and here you can see that we have a Supabase knowledge base. So we have a Supabase. In the Supabase, we're storing chat history, call history, all the credentials, but we also have the documents. And if I would want to upload certain things into my setter, instead of doing it in a prompt, right, I can actually upload it into this document sheet, and then this setter that you can see is connected to this Supabase knowledge base will be able to retrieve this information. So I am telling you to do an opposite. I am telling you to include as much information as you can in a prompt, of course, to balance up, like you need to balance up your cost to not go over the limit. But it's very important. So I'll give you another example. That was a chatbot that we've been building a while back on the voice flow. So it doesn't matter what the flow is, but you will see that if I go to the knowledge base, so here we have some information about the company, like the content, and you can see this, like it's super short. It's basically like the information about the from the about page on the website, and it's not even structured. Some is structured in the Markdown, some is not. But this info needs to be presented to a setter in the prompt. Why? If you know how the RAG works, you should understand that when, let's say, you're asking, what products do you have? If it doesn't have this information in the prompt, I mean like the setter, if the setter doesn't have this information in the prompt, it will query this RAG knowledge base, let's say this RAG, or if you're building on like something like a voice flow, the knowledge base from, the voice flow, and it will retrieve the information, the chunks, the relevant context from it. But if the person is asking something different, like, how can you help me? Okay, this is not the question that will trigger the RAG knowledge base retrieval. Now, again, like you can prompt it to retrieve the context on every action, but it's not gonna find the relevant chunks. So this gonna be kind of weird. But you can say, oh, but like, why would we want to give the setter information about our products if the user is asking, the lead is asking how you can help? Because again, it is a child. So more context it has about our business, about the products, better it can serve the customer, and more options it can do. It can better follow the guidelines in terms of the sales script that you have input. So this is why I like to put as much information as I can in a prompt, and then obviously when the costs are gonna up, we are transitioning the information into the RAG only for the setter to be able to retrieve it once it is needed. Again, 7 tactics, ship them to your current setter tomorrow, and let me know how it goes. Peace.